In this next section, we want to discuss movement preparation. If you recall from our presentation, movement prep is really our redefinition of the warm-up. Traditionally in a warm-up, you would have seen some kind of static stretching, some kind of general aerobic activity, and the rehearsal of upcoming motor skills. Many of those strategies are still pertinent for our movement preparation. But as you recall, our movement preparation now takes a four-component approach. The first thing we're going to have the athlete and the client do is do some kind of mini band activation. That'll involve putting mini bands around the knees and the ankles and having them do a diversity of movements, linear, lateral, and rotational. By getting the hips to activate, all the while being in a good postural position, we start setting the tone for what the body needs to do at higher speeds. From there, we go into a dynamic stretch. These dynamic stretches can take place in place or moving forward. Again, working 360 degrees, selecting those exercises based on the upcoming movement skill session. From there, we want to speed it up a little bit, going into what we call movement integration. Movement integration is our way of rehearsing upcoming motor skills through marching and skipping patterns, linear, lateral, and rotational. From there, once we sped it up, we want to make sure the entire nervous system is clicked on through what we call neural activation or rapid response exercises. This typically takes place out of a base position where we ask the athlete to move their legs as fast as they can in a linear, lateral, or rotational type setting. Rapid response can also take the form of 3 hurdle drills or any other kind of agility drills that are meant to get the nervous system turned on. Through these 4 components, we know 15 minutes a day, 4 times a week over a year, you can have some 52 hours of movement preparation under your belt, which absolutely contributes to the overall adaptation of the athlete. So we always want to start the session correct with an optimized movement preparation. In this first series, we want to go through our mini band activation. When we think about our activation patterns, we can do things again in a linear fashion, a lateral fashion, or a rotational fashion. Choosing these exercises is always based on the sequence you're going to go into from a movement skill perspective. Let's start with a couple simple base patterns working on a squat and rotation at the hips. We're going to start with an overhead squat. This is a great way to groove the hips, the knees, and the ankles together to groove into that nice strong hip position that we want to from a squatting perspective, adding that in our more complex patterns. So we'll start by having JP get his hands right up overhead into a Y position. You can either have them obtain this Y-type position, as an overhead squat normally is done, or you can have them bring their hands together based on the mobility of their shoulders. We're going to keep JP in a Y position. On my go, he's simply going to squat into a good half the deep squat position based on his level. And go. Beautiful. Again, all we're looking for, feet are nice and flat. Keep on going here, JP. We see that back becomes nice and parallel to the shins. Those knees are tracking right up over the toes, simply grooving the pattern. It's movement prep. We're warming the athlete up. We want to start nice and easy and relax. Once the athlete has started to groove that squat pattern, now we can make it a bit more complex. Again, thinking linear, lateral, and rotational, we're going to start with some rotational work. So I'm going to have JP get in a good squat position. From here in this base, he wants to imagine he's got a piece of paper under his feet, and he's simply trying to split that piece of paper. So energy should stay on the inside edge. Already feeling those hips start to activate, chest up. Notice, this doesn't need to be a deep squat. It can be a good, strong half squat position. He's now going to start by taking his right knee. He's going to drop it inside of his right foot. But notice, when he does this, he's not going to drop it so much that it causes him to rotate or causes him to have his foot leave the ground. So hips and shoulders stay square. He maxes out the internal rotation of the hip, and he pushes right back out to neutral. He'll then kick in with the left side, dropping that in. Again, same thing. Hips and shoulders stay square, pushing right back out to neutral. He'll now continue this, alternating right side and left side, on average of about 5 to 10 times each. All the while, the athlete should feel the hips or the glutes activating opposed to the TFL. You'll notice as athletes start to get tired, their hips are going to tuck under their body. As we like to say, keep your tail feathers back and your chest up. It's exactly how we want to perform our base position rotation. Once an athlete's good at this, we can move into more complex patterns, moving forward and back and lateral. We're going to start with our base position, linear walk. So I'll have JP get in that same position. A cue we oftentimes like to use is get your athlete on the train tracks. Right now his train tracks are about shoulder width apart. From this position now, he's simply going to have a heel to toe type mentality. So he's going to go rock heel to toe, but this is a micro step. Notice, my heel is striking roughly where my left side toe ends. Therefore, it doesn't have to be a massive step, micro steps. Nice and strong alternating heel to toe moving forward. Once he gets roughly today 5 and 5 forward. We're going to have him come backwards now, 5 and 5 back. And now he's simply going to reverse the video, going toe to heel, but everything stays nice and strong on those train tracks. Okay, JP, heel to toe coming forward, about 5 and 5 each side. Beautiful. Again, notice, nice and calm body, opposite arm, opposite leg, micro steps, not getting taller, staying low, roof overhead. Beautiful. Toe to heel coming back. Nice linear position, exactly what we're looking for. Wonderful. Once an athlete can master that straight ahead, we can then start looking at side to side. So now I'll have JP face the other way. Same initial base position, but now instead of going toe to heel or heel to toe, he's now moving lateral. A common mistake people make with this is similar to what we see in the shuffle. They over-exaggerate their base, or they try to reach with that lead leg. So we want to see him get into a good, strong base position. Lead leg stays right up under the body. We want to see, again, that knee is tucked right inside that big toe, loading that inside edge. And then it's going to be about a 2-inch push. Push, recover, push, recover, push, recover. All the while, tail feathers back, chest up, so we don't feel that TFL start to kick in. Nice and strong here, and coming my way. Go. Good. That's it. Little bounce in the step is fine, but again, nice level plane with the shoulders and the hips. The whole body moves together. And relax. Let's bring it back the other way. Reset. Beautiful. Push, push. Now with athletes, it's going to be very tempting for them to turn this into a lateral lunge. We do not want to see them completely exhaust that leg. It's meant to be activation. We're not trying to turn it into a strengthening exercise. So once an athlete can go lateral, can go linear, we can then start to look at varying those positions in what we call a split position walk. This is a bit more indicative of your deceleration type techniques. So JP's now going to face me. Because we're going to have him get in a split position, he'll have to do this drill with both legs forward, right, at one point. So you have to do fundamentally 2 sets of this. We'll start with his right leg forward, his left leg back. Notice, this light split position doesn't need to be a split squat, right? So both feet are simply under the base of support. He's going to treat the back leg like the gas, the front leg like the brake. Push, recover, push, recover. Once he gets about 3 steps forward, we're then going to have him reverse that. Push, recover, push, recover. Then once he gets back to the line, simply split the feet again and do the same exact modality. Okay, coming forward, JP, and go. Beautiful. Again, notice we have that 2-inch step mentality. He's not making massive steps. It's not turning into a lunge type pattern. All the while, we're reinforcing the deceleration that an athlete might have to go through. Let's have you flip your legs. Same thing now, JP. So if you're doing any kind of multi-directional session that involves braking or directional cutting, this would be a fantastic activation to kick in the session. All the while, notice what I'm doing. I'm coaching JP. So warm-up, and our version now, movement preparation, isn't meant to be passive. We want to be coaching every single one of these drills as the athlete goes through them. The final one now we want to show kicks in a bit more for our high glute medius and overall glute. So I'm actually going to change the position of the band. So I'm going to have you take the band and go right around the ankle. Now, while JP is doing this, I want to highlight a couple things. We can see JP has 1 band on. Typically, we can go upwards as high as 2 bands. If you're working with an incredibly strong athlete, 2 bands might be what they need for activation. When we think about starting at the knee, that's a little bit easier. It's a shorter lever arm. If I want to make things a little bit harder, I can drop it down to the ankle. Also notice, when I'm in a bent knee position, having the band around my knee is going to load those rotational qualities a bit more of the hip. So when you're considering band, consider load and the specific movement patterns you're trying to hit. On this last one, we're going to take it lateral, and because it's lateral and you're in a straight leg position, loading at the ankle makes a lot more sense. So have JP face the other way. Now on this one, to highlight the trunk, I'm going to have JP put his hands right behind his head. That's going to remind him he needs to stay nice and strong, okay, and nice and tall. From this position, we simply want him sweeping that 1 to 2 inches, hips and shoulders move together. We should not see these shoulders and the hips ever dissociate. The body moves as one. JP, let's take about 5 steps coming off to your right. Beautiful. Again, some coaches like to call this the Frankenstein walk. You can do it lateral or linear, but the legs should be completely straight the entire time, pushing off those inside edges. Notice, shoulders and hips move together. If you're feeling sassy, you can take those arms overhead, if not even give them a med ball overhead to reinforce how tall the body should be. Being able to select the right mini band load, mini bands at the knee and the ankle, and the right movement patterns based on the upcoming movement skill session assures you that you're going to have the correct activation portion before you go into your dynamic stretch, movement integration, and neural activation within movement preparation.